Tennessee, a postseason team for the first time since 2007, looks to take another step forward under Butch Jones, possibly contend this season in the SEC Eastern Division. We bring in Mike Loveall of Last Word on Sports to help us break down the Vols as they hit spring practice back on March 25th. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. Let's dive into the Volunteers and an SEC high 10 early enrollees. That's good for a young football team trying to figure some things out this time of year.
It is, Mark, and thanks for having me. Tennessee did start at spring practice yesterday. The highlight of that spring practice, I think, are the 10 early enrollees, most in the SEC by 2. That comes off 15 early enrollees last year. That's going to be really important for Butch Jones and the staff because Tennessee is still a young team. They played 23 true freshmen last year, 5 more than any other team in all of FBS, and 48% of their team saw their first action with Tennessee last year. So getting those early enrollees, those 10 early enrollees, into the program in the spring to where they can learn the playbook, learn the defensive schemes, the offensive schemes, their reads, the transition between high school and college with the strength training and the intellectual part of football, that's going to be key to get those 10 guys in there and get the entire the other 23 true freshmen and the other 48% of the team that played for its first time last year to get them all those extra reps in spring ball. But those 10 early enrollees are going to be key in addressing one of the major concerns at Tennessee, which is depth.
Mike, this situation is really a classic example of how football is a sport where you really need the depth because we're looking at 3 consecutive very prominent recruiting classes, especially the last 2. So we're talking about that in regards to quality and quantity with, I believe, 32 signees this past winter. But still, at the same time, there are still concerns about depth, still trying to figure some things out, still a very young football team, and a little bit banged up as well.
Absolutely. The personnel situation is kind of in flux. 32 from last year. I think 28 was the final tally this year. So they do have depth concerns, and they are still young, which I talked about. In addition to that, they had about 8 guys transfer out of the program since last December. The other issue is they have 10 players ruled out for spring ball due to health reasons, and a lot of those are key players, particularly at the defensive line and linebacker positions. They only have 1 scholarship running back who is full participation in spring ball. 4 other guys are limited, including Jalen Hurd, the starting tailback. So that depth in the youth is still a concern, even in year 3 of Butch Jones's coaching tenure.
Mike, as you well know, not every spring, but typically during this downtime in Tennessee football going back to the mid to late 2000s, there's been a quarterback battle. There has probably been a front runner in the spring, but a battle that would ensue into the season. This time around, Joshua Dobbs very much entrenched as the starter, but there's some competition behind him, and of course that kid is only a play away, so you got to get that backup quarterback ready as well.
Yeah, the quarterback position is a perfect example of that personnel discussion we were having with the highly recruited classes and the depth that we were just having. Joshua Dobbs is clearly the starting quarterback for the University of Tennessee. In Butch Jones's press conference on Monday, he referred to him as a CEO quarterback. So he's leading, he's managing the offense, he's taking a greater role in the offense. But like you said, Tennessee's 1 play away from having a true freshman come in and lead that offense. We've got two freshman early enrollees, Quinten Dormady, a pro-style quarterback, very good passer with good athleticism, and Juwan Jennings, who's a dual threat quarterback, a little bit more like Joshua Dobbs, who has great athleticism and is a pretty good passer. Nathan, going back to the personnel discussion, Nathan Peterman, the backup, was one of those 8 guys that transferred out of the program over the winter. He went to Pittsburgh. He was the same class as Joshua Dobbs. So you see that talent, the personnel movement in and out of the program. We have Joshua Dobbs coming back, highly touted, kind of a dark horse Heisman. I don't buy into the Heisman hype this year, maybe next year, but he's been getting a lot of publicity from the second half of last year. Tax Slayer Bowl MVP. He's clearly the leader, strength of the offense coming back, but we're only one play away from a true freshman, whether it be Quinten Dormady or Juwan Jennings, taking the realm of the offense. taking the reins of the offense. Excuse me. So that's a perfect illustration of what we're talking about.
Mike Loveall writes some really good stuff for Last Word on Sports. Please check out his work there. Mike, April 25th is the Tennessee spring game. Any big indications that would give you some hope for further progress over the next month that maybe that you would see either in that game or hear some reports from these scrimmages?
Well, the first thing fans are going to be looking for is the absence of injuries. That's really what I think we're hoping for. It's the injury situation in Tennessee is to the point in the spring where Coach Jones is having two different practices, one for the healthy guys and then walkthroughs on the off days for the injured guys. So the fans will be paying most attention to the injury situation because we just don't have a lot of depth. And then going back to the depth, the fans are also looking at how these young, either second-year true sophomores or these early enrollee freshmen, how they perform, because particularly on the defensive line and linebacker positions, because you have a lot of injuries, these young guys are going to get a lot of opportunities and a lot of reps to show what they have. If they do well, that really bodes well for the depth issue, particularly defensive line, where all your major programs rotate sets of 2 and 3 guys out at a time. So injuries and the performance of the young guys is really what we're going to be looking at. We have 18 starters returning, so we kind of know what we've got. The returning starters are known quantities at this point. So the question marks are really injuries and the young guys.
Tennessee is definitely one of those programs to keep an eye on. From a national perspective, I think a lot of people are out there seeing the recruiting rankings, seeing the numbers coming in, and then thinking, okay, we got a big bowl win here. We've seen it, seen some momentum, seen a 7-win football team. Now let's see if they can continue to take those steps, because we've seen it in the past where coaches have come into difficult situations and been able to take those first steps, those leaps and bounds, and it's difficult to go from decent to really good to great, and those are some difficult steps sometimes to take.
Yeah, particularly in the SEC, where we're going from 7 wins to 9 wins means you've got to beat 2 top 15 teams, whether you're in the West or the East, and not getting to the conference battle. But you're exactly right. Taking that step from 7 wins to 9 wins in the SEC is really all about, I think, depth. Every team has a good coach. Every team has great 5-star athletes. But taking that step from 7 to 9 wins is going to be huge for Butch Jones. And in college football, with so much of it, with the importance of recruiting, once you build that momentum, that Butch Jones has these 3 recruiting classes. If he continues to improve the program, we'll see the momentum in recruiting continue. If for some reason they regress or they can't make progress, you're going to see ramifications elsewhere. So it's critically important to keep moving forward. I've got the over/under this year set at 8.5 games. I think they have to win 8 games. I think they could win 9. So again, Tennessee over the last 10 years has kind of been in a state of transition, and I think fans are really hoping for some stability and some continued forward progress, getting back to competing for SEC East championships over the next 2 years, and then maybe taking the next step in competing for SEC championships as the longer Butch Jones stays at Tennessee.
All right, we like to speak to the smart college football fans, so if you consider yourself in that category, check out some of Mike's work at Last Word on Sports. Appreciate the insight, Mike.
It's always a pleasure, Mark.